The Black Lotus's Guide to Self-Rescue. I am the long-lost biological daughter of the Jiang family. On the day I was reunited with my real family, I stormed into the adoptive daughter's room, ripped her dress to shreds, and called her an uncultured bumpkin. Janet, the adoptive daughter, went ballistic and screamed at me, "Vivian, you bitch!" Before I could even utter a word, Mr. Jiang slapped her across the face. "Janet, when will you ever be as sensible as Vivian? You've disappointed your father too much?" Mrs. Jiang cast a cold, disdainful look at her. Such an ungrateful wretch. Watching Janet collapse to the floor, I smirked. "Janet, this time, you'll taste what it's like to be abandoned by your own family." When Mrs. Jiang woke up, I was dutifully sitting on a hospital chair, doing my math homework. Seeing her eyes flutter open, I quickly stood up and asked, "Auntie, are you awake? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Mrs. Jiang gave a weak smile. "My good girl, thank goodness you were here." Mrs. Jiang had fainted on the street due to low blood sugar, and I had promptly brought her to the hospital. Looking at the gentle woman before me, I couldn't help but recall the look of utter disgust she had given me in my previous life. How could I have such an insensible daughter like you? I would rather have kept the wrong one. Yes, this elegant woman before me was indeed my biological mother. She just didn't know it yet. I am the long-lost biological daughter of the Jiang family. In my previous life, I had returned to the Jiang household filled with joy and anticipation, but all I received was cold indifference and constant dissatisfaction from the entire family. Mr. Jiang had merely raised an eyebrow, scrutinized me, and then commanded, "Teach her some manners," before turning his back and returning to work. Mrs. Jiang, though polite, was incredibly distant. "If you need anything, just tell Aunt Liu." From beginning to end, their eyes were solely on Janet. Meanwhile, Janet, draped in a limited edition designer dress and Mary Jane shoes, wore an expression of clear displeasure. Mrs. Jiang was still stroking her hair, trying to comfort her. I suppressed my cold gaze, then poured a glass of water for Mrs. Jiang, who was lying in the hospital bed. Mrs. Jiang offered another grateful smile. Ha, how ironic. In my previous life, to win over Mr. and Mrs. Jiang, I had personally cooked meals and simmered soups every day, yet I never earned a single smile from them. Now, with just a glass of water, Mrs. Jiang was overwhelmingly thankful. It truly was a curse to be their daughter. Hearing Mrs. Jiang call for her driver, I politely stood up to say goodbye. It was still too early to meet the others. Mrs. Jiang tried to thank me, but I refused. She then insisted on taking my contact number. Yes, today, I had deliberately passed by her and accidentally saved her. I remembered Aunt Liu, the housekeeper, telling me in my previous life that Mrs. Jiang once suffered a severe low blood sugar attack and was fortunately rescued by a passing student. That student later became Mrs. Jiang's adopted son and was given a direct position in the Jiang Corporation. His name was Gary, and he was one of Janet's loyal, spare tires. In my past life, he had helped Janet harm me on more than a few occasions. This time, I had timed everything perfectly, seizing his opportunity before he could. I wondered if he would still appear in the Jiang household. That evening, I returned to my adoptive parents' house. Mr. Su, drunk as usual, immediately started yelling abuses the moment he saw me. "You good-for-nothing parasite. All you do is go out and entice men all day. See if I don't beat you to death," Mrs. Su feigned, trying to stop him. All right, every day it's the same drunken madness when you come home." As she spoke, she urged me to wash the dishes. I obediently went to the kitchen, but Mr. Su wasn't done yet. "You useless bitch, who told you to leave? You don't even listen to your father. You think you're so great now, huh?" With that, he pulled off his belt and lashed out at me. I didn't dodge, simply enduring each whip from that man, striking exactly where it needed to hit. Without these injuries, how could I ever gain Mrs. Jiang's pity? Seeing that I didn't resist, my adoptive father eventually grew bored, cursed me as a jinx, and retreated to his bedroom. The next day, Mrs. Jiang arranged to meet me. I tied my hair in a high ponytail and deliberately wore patched-up clothes underneath, with faded jeans on the outside. My face and Mrs. Jiang's were quite similar, both radiant and elegant. Even in simple attire, the delicate features of my face couldn't be hidden. Mrs. Jiang was delighted to see me and handed me a gift box containing a beautiful brooch. I pursed my lips. "Auntie Jiang, you really don't need to waste money. I can't use this." Mrs. Jiang then took a closer look at me, noticing I was dressed entirely in old clothes, and her eyes filled with uncontrollable pity. "Was I careless? Let me take you shopping for new clothes, dear." I continued to refuse, striving to cultivate the image of a resilient and kind white lotus girl. Auntie Jiang, I only did what was right. You truly don't need to do this. If you want to thank me, could you perhaps give me a set of study books? Seeing my cautious, timid gaze, Mrs. Jiang's heart almost melted. She immediately called her driver to take me to a bookstore. On the way, Mrs. Jiang accidentally brushed against my arm. I gasped softly and flinched. Noticing Mrs. Jiang's gaze, I quickly pulled my arm back. Mrs. Jiang looked suspicious, ignoring my attempts to stop her. She rolled up my sleeve. Seeing the deep red marks and bruises on my skin, Mrs. Jiang nearly cried out, "Vivian, who did this to you? Has someone been bullying you at school?" I lowered my head, pretending I didn't dare to speak. "Have you told your parents?" "Doesn't the school do anything? I'll call the school." I quickly stopped her. "No need, Auntie Jiang. No one bullies me at school, really." Mrs. Jiang hesitated for a moment. "Is it? Your parents?" I pursed my lips and nodded. Mrs. Jiang looked utterly incredulous. How could anyone treat their own daughter like this? Seeing Mrs. Jiang's agitated expression, I smirked inwardly. Exactly, I also wanted to ask how anyone could treat their own biological daughter like that. In my previous life, Mr. and Mrs. Jiang completely disregarded the life I had been forced to endure. Of course, they didn't want to care. Even if I was covered in wounds, they pretended not to see them. Now, seeing Mrs. Jiang's concern, I felt only disgust. Mrs. Jiang took me to the hospital to get my wounds treated. On the way, Mrs. Jiang received a phone call. From the tone, it sounded like Janet. "Didn't you just buy over a dozen bags last week? What do you want more?" Bye. My daughter complimented me so much, how could I not buy it for you? The dessert shop on Lotus Lake Street, right? All right, I'll buy it for you later." Mrs. Jiang hung up, her face filled with doting affection, still smiling as she sighed to me. "That girl of mine is such a mischievous monkey. If only she were as sensible as you, Vivian, all the time, that would be wonderful." I lowered my face and curved my lips into a sneer. "If only I had a mother like you." Seeing the look of disappointment on my pale face, Mrs. Jiang's heart was strongly moved. To console me, Mrs. Jiang also bought me a similar dessert from the store. After the Jiang family's car drove away, my face immediately returned to its expressionless state, and I casually tossed the dessert into a trash can. On Monday, I returned to school. Hearing the teachers say that several companies would be visiting the school for a survey soon, my heart stirred. My high school was a prominent local institution. If my guess was correct, the upcoming survey would definitely include the Jiang Corporation. After a moment's thought, I went to the teacher's office. Throughout that week, Mrs. Jiang frequently texted me and occasionally sent her driver to bring me food. And I maintained my image as a pitiful, delicate, and sensible white lotus girl, to the point where others felt sorry for me. The new week arrived, and leaders from major corporations came to tour and survey the school. As Mr. Jiang and his entourage were led through the school grounds, my voice rang out at just the right moment. "Hello, everyone. I'm Vivian, a student from class 11A1. The clear voice of the young girl immediately attracted everyone's attention. Dressed in a clean uniform with a neat high ponytail, I stood at the podium as the top student of my grade, sharing my study experiences. The principal promptly introduced me. "This is Vivian, our school's top-ranking student, a star in academic competitions. This girl is truly outstanding, a promising talent." Mr. Jiang had already heard about me saving Mrs. Jiang, so he naturally knew my name. Hearing the principal's words now, he nodded in approval. "The charity event in a few days, aren't they looking for some outstanding students to volunteer? I think Vivian is an excellent choice." The principal had no objections. After all, it was a good deed that brought honor to the school. When my homeroom teacher mentioned it, I happily agreed. A few days later, I arrived at the venue on time with a few other students from my school. This charity event primarily focused on helping disadvantaged children, with corporations investing in building a new school. Mr. Jiang and several other leaders arrived a bit late. Dressed in a red volunteer vest, I smiled sweetly as I handed out items to the children. During the media interview, I spoke confidently and calmly, with measured words. Even the principal nodded repeatedly, astonished by my performance. Immediately after the news aired, thanks to my appearance and speech, the keyword "most beautiful volunteer" quickly topped the search trends. The Jiang Corporation and other businesses, seeing this, were more than willing to fan the flames. I also gained some recognition from this incident. I took the opportunity to open my own social media account. However, knowing that too much exposure isn't good, I only shared some study tips. Mrs. Jiang was extremely surprised when she learned about this. "Vivian, you're so talented. Auntie Jiang has to think about how to reward you." I smiled, still refusing Mrs. Jiang's material gifts. "Auntie Jiang, I cherish you very much. In the future, you just need to find time to visit me." Hearing my thoughtful reply, Mrs. Jiang was deeply moved. She then hugged me, her head bowed in thought. "Vivian, I know you don't want material gifts. So would you like to attend the Tsinghua Peking University summer camp?" I smiled inwardly. This was exactly what I was aiming for. Once I returned to the Jiang household, I wouldn't lack clothes or jewelry anyway. It was better to use this opportunity to better myself. I immediately showed an incredulous expression. "Really, Auntie Jiang? Is that truly possible?" Mrs. Jiang looked at my sparkling eyes and couldn't help but playfully pinch my nose. "Of course. A studious girl like Vivian, Auntie will certainly support you," I happily said. "Thank you, Auntie Jiang." Very soon after, I attended the summer camp as planned. During that time, I met many talented people and made a few friends. The moment I got off the car upon my return, Daisy called out to me. "Vivian, don't forget to text me when you get home." I smiled and nodded, watching her skip off the car. But before I could even turn around, I saw Daisy run towards another girl, Janet. Daisy and Janet both attended the aristocratic private school, so their acquaintance wasn't surprising. Janet was dressed in a preppy school-style outfit, her meticulous makeup making her stand out among the other students. The corner of my mouth slowly curled upwards. No matter how outstanding I was, it wouldn't be enough to shake Janet's position in Mr. and Mrs. Jiang's hearts. But what if Janet continuously disappointed them? I remembered something. In my previous life, Janet and her cronies had bullied a female student from the same school for a long time. That girl was incredibly stubborn and nearly committed suicide. In the end, Gary had to step in to help Janet resolve everything. But what if Gary wasn't there? Would Janet still be so lucky? I just hadn't expected Janet and I to meet so soon. That weekend, Mrs. Jiang invited me out. At first, I thought it would be just the two of us like before, until Janet stepped out of the car. "Vivian, Auntie wanted to introduce Janet to you earlier. Today, Janet insisted on coming along. You two should get to know each other." Janet descended lazily, dressed in a black and white plaid outfit. One look and it was clear she was a typical pampered young lady. She frowned, sizing me up, her displeasure and wariness clearly visible in her eyes. "Mom, is this the Vivian you always talk about?" Janet deliberately draped her arm around Mrs. Jiang's arm as she asked. "Yes, this is Vivian." Mrs. Jiang looked at me with an expression of complete satisfaction. Janet sneered. "Such a country bumpkin." "Janet, what kind of language is that? Where have your manners gone?" The smile vanished from Mrs. Jiang's face. She glared at Janet, then turned to explain to me. "Vivian, please don't mind her. Janet doesn't mean any harm, it's just that I've spoiled her too much." I bit my lip, a hint of sadness in my eyes. "It's all right, Auntie Jiang. Janet is so lucky to have a wonderful mother like you." "HMPH, quite the actress," Janet scoffed. I listened to Janet's words, slowly lowered my head, the corners of my mouth drooping. This time, Mrs. Jiang was genuinely angry. "Janet, your allowance for this week is gone. Go home immediately." "Mom, you're punishing me again because of this country girl. Whose mother are you, mine or hers?" Janet shrieked, shooting me a malicious glare before turning and running off. Mrs. Jiang repeatedly apologized to me, and I, being sensible, comforted her with a few words. Seeing her sadness, I suggested we go to an art exhibition. Mrs. Jiang naturally agreed. At the art gallery, Mrs. Jiang was immediately drawn to the painting in the center. It depicted a gentle woman gazing with immense affection at a baby in a cradle. Although the painting was abstract, upon closer inspection, the woman in it was clearly Mrs. Jiang. Mrs. Jiang was very surprised. "Mrs. Jiang, this is a gift from this young lady to you," the staff explained, looking at me. "Vivian, this is." I smiled demurely. "Auntie Jiang, you've always taken such thoughtful care of me, and I have nothing to repay you with. I've been working part-time at an art studio. This painting is something I drew for you with my own hands. I hope you like it." Mrs. Jiang was astonished and too moved to speak. After all, in the world of the wealthy, there was nothing they lacked. It was sincere gifts like this that were most precious. After this incident, my standing in Mrs. Jiang's heart rose even higher. Mrs. Jiang treated me with even more consideration. On weekends or whenever she had free time, Mrs. Jiang would visit me. Knowing I had a talent for painting, she even hired a famous artist to give me private lessons. I comfortably enjoyed all the benefits Mrs. Jiang provided. Just kidding, these things were originally mine anyway. Of course, I accepted them without any shame. On the other hand, Daisy and I also communicated more often. From her, I learned that Janet was indeed bullying a classmate, just like in my previous life. The corner of my mouth curved into a smirk. Well then, I'll give her a grand gift. A few days later, a video circulated online. In the girls' restroom, a luxuriously dressed girl, accompanied by several others, was violently beating another female student. The beaten student screamed desperately, "Help me, Janet." "I didn't do anything to offend you. Why are you treating me like this?" The luxurious girl coldly replied, "This young lady can beat whoever she wants." With that, she kicked the student several times, then grabbed her hair and dragged her to the sink. The student's head was forced into the sink, while those nearby laughed heartily. Someone even suggested, "Let's strip this bitch and take some pictures. If she dares to speak out, we'll upload them online." With that, a few people around moved towards the beaten student. The video ended there. Very quickly, this video became the hottest topic on social media. "Oh my God, isn't this like a drama? Hell is empty and all the devils are here. How can anyone be so cruel? This is an aristocratic high school, so what hope is there for us ordinary people?" Netizens used the uniform of the assaulted student to identify the school. Those with a keen eye used voices and appearances to uncover the identities of those involved. Janet's identity was quickly exposed by netizens. The young lady of the Jiang Corporation, no wonder she's so arrogant. So, if you have money, you can do whatever you want. I suggest an investigation into the Jiang Corporation. They must have done many illegal things. These people are all my schoolmates. Janet is very famous at school. If she doesn't like someone, that person will have bad luck. Can the Jiang Corporation really cover up everything? I asked the authorities to look into this matter. No one expected events to unfold so rapidly. After realizing what had happened, the Jiang family immediately deleted the video. But this only further confirmed the Jiang family's attempts to cover up their actions. The Jiang family was one of the wealthiest families in H-City, operating in various sectors such as real estate, hospitality, and cosmetics. Immediately, netizens called for a boycott of the Jiang Corporation online. Looking at the uproar online, I smiled with satisfaction. I wonder if Janet likes this gift. When Mrs. Jiang came to pick me up that weekend, her exhausted and haggard expression was impossible to hide. "Auntie Jiang, are you all right?" I bit my lip, looking at her with a worried expression. After all, with such a massive scandal online, I couldn't pretend not to know. Mrs. Jiang rubbed her forehead and said, "That Janet girl is truly too much." Inwardly, I smirked. Did Mr. and Mrs. Jiang truly not know what kind of person Janet was? It's just that this time, Janet had caused too big a stir, making it difficult to resolve. Janet was probably just foolish for a moment. "Auntie, don't get too angry and affect your health," I gently comforted Mrs. Jiang. "Fortunately, your father has already contacted that girl. Her family also accepted the money, so there shouldn't be any more trouble." Mrs. Jiang held my hand and continued, "Vivian, if only you were my daughter, how wonderful that would be." I smiled. "End like this, I won't allow it." The next day, another video once again ignited the fury of netizens. The victim, her face swollen and her head wrapped in bandages, cried as she recounted her story before the camera. "Please, everyone, spare my parents. My father has lost his job. I promise I won't speak out anymore. Please, everyone, spare my family." The girl's distressed cries deeply moved the netizens watching the video. If before they were merely angry, this time it was burning hatred. People always sympathize with the weak. The more pitiful the victim, the more compassion people felt. And as for the truth, how many truly cared? Immediately, Janet and the Jiang family once again topped the search trends. Is there no law? The victim is already miserable enough, and they're using her family to threaten her. Is it really that difficult for an ordinary person to protect their rights? Demand a comprehensive investigation into the Jiang Corporation. Is no one going to rein in the Jiang family's outrageous behavior? This is too scary. Isn't this psychological terrorism? The incident was too scandalous, and netizens from everywhere got involved. Soon, all of Janet's past behaviors were exposed. This violent girl is a repeat offender. A year ago, a fellow student named Mia was also bullied by her, and eventually couldn't take it anymore and dropped out of school. I remember that. Mia was tormented to the point of a mental breakdown. She looked so pathetic. This girl was already the big sister in middle school. At least a dozen people were bullied by her at our school. I can testify, I was one of her victims. All right, I'll reveal a shocking secret here. Where do you think this girl's violin award came from? I won't mention other things. I'll just drop one name, Hannah. Hannah, isn't she the talented violinist? I heard she won many awards, but there hasn't been any news about her for a long time. Oh my God, it's not what I'm thinking, is it? With the rapid spread of information, things quickly spiraled out of control. The Jiang family hired many fake social media accounts to push down the news, but they still couldn't diminish the intensity of the scandal. The story wasn't over yet. Not long after, many victims collectively posted a video, openly accusing Janet of school violence using their real names. The video was shared incredibly fast. Fueled by netizens, the official government social media page quickly liked the video. This was a clear indication that the higher-ups had decided to thoroughly investigate all these matters. Watching the dramatic play I had orchestrated, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Janet, do you like the gift I gave you? Recently, Mrs. Jiang hadn't visited me, but this was within my expectations. After all, with such a major incident happening in the Jiang family, she must have been too busy to care about others' affairs. But I still needed to mark my presence. Besides, I was eager to go to the Jiang family home to witness the drama unfold. When I brought my homemade pastries to the Jiang residence, Mrs. Jiang was very surprised. Auntie Jiang, you've been so busy lately. I was worried about your health, so I came to visit. I nervously rubbed my hands, appearing cautious and timid. As expected, Mrs. Jiang immediately took my hand. Vivian, you're so thoughtful. Auntie has been so busy lately that I neglected you. Please don't be angry with me. I immediately shook my head. How could I be? Auntie, these are some pastries I made myself. I brought them for you to try. I hope you'll like them. Mrs. Jiang looked at the neatly arranged pastries in the box, her face deeply moved. Just as she was about to speak, Janet's furious screams echoed from upstairs. Those bitches, how dare they accuse me publicly? Why don't they just go die? Followed by the sound of objects smashing. Mrs. Jiang, of course, heard it and her face immediately darkened. She ordered the housekeeper, tell her if she makes another ruckus, she can get out. Watching Mrs. Jiang's exasperated expression, I couldn't help but chuckle coldly inwardly. In my previous life, Mrs. Jiang always pampered Janet, but in this life she could utter such harsh words to her. Tusk, it seems she's genuinely quite angry this time, but then again, it's understandable. After all, in the previous life, Janet's mischief was at most minor pranks. In this life, she had caused genuine damage to the Jiang family. I continued to flash my demure smile. Auntie Jiang, please don't be angry. I believe Janet didn't mean to. You already suffer from low blood sugar. Don't let anger affect your health. Mrs. Jiang was indeed very pleased, holding my hand tightly and not letting go. Even as I left, she looked at me with a lingering gaze, reluctant to see me leave. Before departing, I glanced at the Jiang family's villa. Its outwardly simple yet splendid appearance, nestled within a vast garden, suddenly seemed a little desolate. I chewed my gum indifferently, my mood cheerful. Janet's case was quickly and thoroughly investigated. Over the years, the number of people bullied by Janet reached more than a dozen, but because she was a minor, she only received educational counseling and reprimands. Nevertheless, Janet's reputation was utterly ruined. Furthermore, the violin star, art award Janet had once received was, after investigation, found to be due to her using unethical means to coerce Hannah into dropping out of the competition. Soon enough, this title was revoked by the Artists' Association. As for the Jiang Corporation, despite its damaged reputation, thanks to my advice, Mrs. Jiang directed the company to ramp up its charity activities to whitewash its image. As a result, the Jiang Corporation's image significantly improved. Just kidding, all of this will be my inheritance later. Of course, I couldn't just stand by and watch Janet drag the company into the mud. Seizing this opportunity, I once again rose to fame. The keyword "most beautiful volunteer" became hot again, and I attracted quite a few fans. The Jiang Corporation's volunteer is much prettier than that violent girl. She's so strong. I think this volunteer might also be from the Jiang family. Her features resemble Mrs. Jiang's a lot. I heard she's also a top student, both beautiful and kind-hearted. This is the role model for modern youth. I smiled with satisfaction. This battle was a beautiful victory for me. I struck a blow against Janet, won over Mr. and Mrs. Jiang, and even attracted a large number of fans. The results were much better than I had imagined. The Jiang family processed Janet's withdrawal from school. Mrs. Jiang became increasingly dependent on me. Perhaps it was because Janet had brought her too much disappointment. I couldn't help but wonder if she knew at this moment that Janet, with her despicable character, was not her biological daughter, and that I, this obedient and excellent girl, was her true biological daughter. What would her choice be? I was eager to see that scene unfold. That evening, I was washing dishes at the Su family home. Mr. Su returned home, dead drunk, and immediately started babbling curses the moment he walked in. I pretended not to notice. This, as expected, infuriated him. "You good for nothing. Aren't you going to get your father's slippers? Want another beating, do you?" My heart began to grow impatient, my cold gaze impossible to conceal. I truly didn't want to continue this charade anymore. So I looked at the pot-bellied, balding middle-aged man in front of me and feigned fear as I spoke. "Father, please don't hit me. I'm your biological daughter." The man delivered a stinging slap across my face. "You bastard child, still daring to talk back. Looks like you're itching for a beating." With that, he casually grabbed the handle of the broom leaning nearby and lunged at me. I, still unafraid, screamed, "Father, what are you saying? I'm not a bastard child." Mr. Su, clearly wasted, swung the broom handle at me. "I say you're a bastard child, then you're a bastard child. Dare to argue and I'll beat you to death." I quickly dodged a few potentially fatal blows. Just kidding, I only wanted to test Mr. Su's words. I didn't want to die here. The more Mr. Su missed, the more furious he became, until a moment later he accidentally slipped and fell to the ground, hitting his head and passing out. Tusk, how troublesome. Looking at the unconscious man before me, I cautiously put my nose near his to check. He wasn't dead yet. I wiped my hands in disgust, calmly formulating a plan. At this moment, Mrs. Su was still at work and hadn't returned. I feigned panic, trembling as I called Mrs. Jiang. "Auntie Jiang, my father has fainted. Please help me." Mrs. Jiang, hearing my choked sobs, also became frantic. After hastily agreeing, she rushed to my house. The ambulance also arrived around the same time. Mrs. Jiang comforted me with a few words, and while waiting, she couldn't help but look around the Su family's home. The house, less than 60 square meters, was dilapidated and rundown, with peeling walls. Cigarette butts and empty liquor bottles were scattered everywhere. On the stove, there was half a stale bun and spoiled leftovers. Mrs. Jiang flinched. For an elegant woman like her, it must have been difficult to imagine anyone living in such a place. I deliberately let her see the circumstances of the Su family. In my previous life, Mrs. Jiang had absolutely no desire to learn about my past. So, in this life, I would make sure she clearly saw what kind of life her biological daughter had endured. The hospital quickly released the results. Mr. Su was fine. "Vivian, you've suffered so much." I quickly shook my head. "Auntie Jiang, it's all my fault. If only I had known father would hit me, I would have just stood still and let him hit me, then he wouldn't have." "What foolish things are you saying? Who would just stand there and not run away when being hit?" I bit my lip, lowering my eyes, appearing obedient. "Father said I wasn't his biological daughter. He said I was a bastard child. Auntie Jiang, I'm so sad." Mrs. Jiang's eyes twitched as she looked at me. I continued, "It must be because I wasn't good enough, which is why my adoptive parents never liked me since I was little." Mrs. Jiang fell into deep thought. She had wanted to adopt me before, but hesitated since my adoptive parents were still alive. This time, I had inadvertently given her the perfect opening. If I truly wasn't the Su family's biological daughter, she could openly propose adopting me without any ties. Watching Mrs. Jiang lost in thought, I prepared to add fuel to the fire. "Auntie Jiang, if only I had a mother like you." This very sentence solidified Mrs. Jiang's already wavering resolve. "Don't worry, my good girl. From now on, Auntie will always be by your side." I smiled subtly. Now, I just had to wait and see Mrs. Jiang's efficiency. The events of that year were no secret. Mrs. Su, wanting her daughter to have a good life, had secretly swapped me and Janet. Although it had been a long time, with some effort, it could certainly be investigated. Next, I just had to prepare for the show. I thought Mrs. Jiang would need some time to investigate, but I didn't expect her to be so quick. When she found me, her eyes filled with tears, I knew everything had succeeded. At that moment, I was in the hospital room, listening to Mrs. Su's abuse. "You jinx of a child, nothing good happens when you're home. I wish I'd strangled you back then." "Who do you want to strangle?" Mr. Jiang and Mrs. Jiang rushed in. Coincidentally hearing that remark, Mr. Jiang roared with fury. The sus were a bit stunned, but seeing Mr. and Mrs. Jiang's luxurious and elegant attire, they dared not speak for a moment. Vivian, you are my biological daughter. Mrs. Jiang lunged forward, embracing me tightly, and began to sob uncontrollably. I turned my head to look at Mr. and Mrs. Su. Mr. Su avoided my gaze, while Mrs. Su looked somewhat guilty. I then looked at Mrs. Jiang, feigning confusion. More than 10 years ago, your mother and your adoptive mother gave birth in the same hospital. You were swapped, and you are my biological daughter. Hearing Mrs. Jiang's explanation, my eyes immediately welled up. Mr. and Mrs. Jiang looked at my expression, feeling even more heartache. I couldn't help but smirk inwardly. If the Jiang family had investigated the baby swap, they would naturally have found out that the sus were responsible, yet they hadn't reported it to the police. It seemed they still cared for Janet. On my face, I showed no such thoughts, only a more pitiful expression. With the truth clear, I naturally had to return home with Mr. and Mrs. Jiang. In the car, I feigned confusion and worry, but inwardly I was eagerly anticipating Janet's reaction. Arriving at the Jiang residence, I adopted a demure and composed demeanor, following Mr. and Mrs. Jiang into the house. Janet had clearly already learned the news. She appeared before me in a smoke gray fitted dress with an exquisitely styled haircut. Mother, father, Vivian will be my younger sister from now on. I will definitely take good care of her. Although Mr. Jiang was still angry with Janet, his expression softened slightly upon hearing these words. I offered a confident and friendly smile. Hello, Janet. Thank you for being with my parents in my place for all these years. As expected, Mrs. Jiang's eyes immediately welled up with tears when she heard me say that. Vivian, my daughter, you've suffered so much. That one simple sentence instantly made Mr. and Mrs. Jiang recall the life I had been forced to endure, and consequently, their attitude towards Janet cooled by 3 degrees. Janet gritted her teeth in hatred, but still forced a strained smile. Mrs. Jiang led me on a tour of the house. When we reached Janet's room, I gasped in astonishment at the exquisitely designed interior. Mother, could this room be mine? I love it so much. That's in my room, Janet snapped, practically screaming. Oh, I'm sorry, Janet, I didn't know it was your room. Seeing my apologetic expression, Mrs. Jiang quickly reassured me. It's all right, it's just a room. Janet, why don't you let Vivian have this one? I'll decorate another room for you. Janet's face turned beet red with rage, and she gritted her teeth in agreement, but immediately she thought of a way to get back at me. She deliberately led me to her walk-in closet, gloating, "These are all things Mother and Father bought for me. I bet a country bumpkin like you has never seen anything like them, have you?" My lips curved into a slight smirk. All right, I'll play along with her for a bit. I picked up a custom-made dress displayed on a mannequin, my face filled with awe. It's so beautiful. Janet, I'm so envious of you. You have so many gorgeous clothes, unlike me. After saying that, I sadly lowered my head and tugged at my own faded top. Mrs. Jiang, who was standing nearby, noticed this and immediately came to comfort me. Vivian, Mother will buy you a much better set. From now on, whatever my darling wants, Mother will grant it. I affectionately hugged Mrs. Jiang's arm, acting coy. Mother, you're so kind, I love you. Janet was infuriated by the sight and loudly demanded, "Give me back my dress." I secretly winked at her, then deliberately used my fingernail to tear the dress in my hands. Ah, I'm so sorry, Janet. I accidentally ruined your dress. It's all my fault, I didn't mean to. You won't be angry, will you? I apologized with feigned panic. Janet's eyes burned with hatred, wishing she could devour me alive, but she still didn't do anything. Ha, she can still hold back. It seems she's improved quite a bit, I thought, thoroughly amused. I wanted to see how long Janet could endure. When no one was paying attention, I leaned close to Janet's ear and whispered, "A wild chicken, even if it transforms into a phoenix, is still just a country chicken in the end." Janet's anger immediately flared. "Vivian, you bitch." I instantly adjusted my expression, looking wronged and lowering my head. This scene was also witnessed by Mr. and Mrs. Jiang. Slap! Mr. Jiang delivered a forceful slap to her face. "Janet, when will you ever be as sensible as Vivian? You've disappointed your father too much." Mrs. Jiang looked at her with a cold gaze. "The Jiang family has raised you for all these years. You truly are an ungrateful wretch." Janet's face showed utter disbelief. "Mother, father, how can you treat me like this? Is blood relation really that important?" "I'm the daughter you've raised for over a decade." Mr. Jiang cast a cold glance at her. "If you know your place, the Jiang family might still tolerate you, but if you keep making a fuss, go back to your biological parents." With that, Mr. Jiang turned and left. Mrs. Jiang also pulled me along right after, leaving Janet standing alone, rooted to the spot. My heart swelled with immense satisfaction, but it still wasn't enough. Remembering how, in my previous life, Janet had bullied me to the point of losing my chance at an education, and eventually hired thugs to humiliate me to death. In my heart, I felt that this was still not enough retribution. Returning to the Jiang family home, Mr. and Mrs. Jiang poured all their efforts into cultivating me. I enjoyed the best resources, bringing honor to them. Mr. and Mrs. Jiang were very satisfied. As for Janet, after the previous incident, she had become much more restrained. Every day, besides shopping and spending money, she only attended parties with her girlfriends, no longer causing me trouble. But how could I let her live so comfortably? Not long after, the sus came knocking on the door. Mr. Su lay sprawled on the Jiang family's floor. Mrs. Su wailed, "My daughter, give me back my daughter. Let me see my daughter for a moment, please." Mrs. Jiang frowned, looking at them. "The money that was supposed to be given to you, I've already given it. What more fuss are you making?" "Madam, I also want to see my biological daughter. This old woman isn't worth much anyway. If you really put me in jail, I'll drag my daughter with me." Mrs. Su clung on relentlessly, so Mrs. Jiang had no choice but to rub her forehead and call Janet downstairs. Janet, dressed in a light blue outfit, leisurely descended the stairs. Seeing the sus, her face stiffened. Before she could even run, Mrs. Su grabbed Janet. "Janet, it's me. I'm your biological mother. I missed you so much. Come home with me." Janet pushed Mrs. Su away in disgust. "I only have one mother. Stay away from me." Mrs. Su, being inherently aggressive, how could she listen to Janet? Mrs. Su forcefully grabbed Janet's arm and pulled her towards the door. Janet began to curse Mrs. Su. Mr. Su rushed forward and slapped Janet. "You ungrateful bitch, you don't even recognize your biological parents. See if I don't skin you alive." After that, all three sus wrestled in the living room. Mrs. Jiang quickly called the housekeepers to separate them. It wasn't until the butler intervened that they finally stopped. I don't know what Mrs. Jiang said to the sus. Before leaving, Mr. and Mrs. Su even spat at Janet. Janet, with disheveled hair and disarrayed clothes, slumped onto the floor. Her face was swollen from Mr. Su's slap, making her look somewhat comical. My mood was exceptionally good. Yes, all of this was orchestrated by me. Ms. Wang, the sus neighbor, had always had a good relationship with me. Under my guidance, she deliberately disclosed Janet's wealthy life at the Jiang family home to Mrs. Su and advised her to visit her daughter more often. With my understanding of the sus, they would definitely be moved. Mrs. Jiang was also frightened by this incident. I led her back to her room to rest. As I walked past Janet, I smiled silently at her. Janet was so furious she wanted to pounce and claw at my face. "Enough!" Mrs. Jiang yelled. "Janet, your father will arrange your marriage as soon as possible." Janet collapsed to the floor, her hateful gaze towards me utterly unconcealed. Yes, for cold-blooded people like the Jiang family, the daughter they had raised for over a decade naturally had to serve a purpose. But would Janet actually obey? In the following days, I calmly prepared for my university entrance exams while also familiarizing myself with the company's affairs alongside Mr. Jiang. As for Janet, she was nowhere to be seen all day. I didn't know what she was busy with. I looked at the photos Tina sent me, smiling. In this life, Janet was still in contact with Gary. At this point, Gary was just a university student, without parents, living off part-time jobs. Yet he was still involved with Janet. One could only say fate was truly unpredictable. Seeing this, I felt even more reassured. After that, I leisurely prepared for the university entrance exam. Mr. Jiang, meanwhile, arranged a marriage for Janet. The prospective groom was quite well off, considered a suitable match. Janet, however, couldn't bear it because she was already pregnant. When Mrs. Jiang learned this news, she was so furious she nearly had a high blood pressure attack. Mr. Jiang angrily smashed the dishes in his hand. Mrs. Jiang demanded Janet get an abortion. Janet refused. Mr. Jiang sternly declared, "If you don't cut ties with Gary, I'll kick you out of this house." Janet verbally agreed, but her eyes were filled with resentment. I heightened my vigilance, instructing someone to keep an eye on Janet, but I never expected her to commit such a ruthless act. The day the university entrance exams ended, I felt much more relieved. Janet unexpectedly went down to the kitchen to cook, claiming it was to congratulate me. Mrs. Jiang, seeing her seemingly obedient lately, allowed her to do as she pleased. It wasn't until the very last moment before losing consciousness that I realized she had put sedatives in everyone's food. I woke up choking from a thick, acrid smoke. When I regained consciousness, I saw that the windows and doors were all locked from the outside. Janet intended to burn the three of us alive in the house. I covered my mouth with my hand, shaking Mr. and Mrs. Jiang, who lay motionless nearby. Mrs. Jiang panicked, pulling me tightly behind Mr. Jiang. Mr. Jiang knew the escape route, and Mrs. Jiang and I helped him follow. The flames grew larger and larger, and black smoke engulfed the entire house. As we reached a small door on the first floor, I finally breathed a sigh of relief, but I didn't see the charred screen next to us collapsing. Amidst the flashing flames, Mr. Jiang lunged to shield me, and of course, he was crushed by the falling screen. I was stunned for a moment, then desperately pulled Mr. Jiang's hand, but no matter how hard I tried, it was no use. Mr. Jiang merely waved his hand towards me and even smiled at me. "Vivian, I'm sorry for letting you suffer so much before. This house, I leave it to you now." In that moment, I couldn't describe the emotions in my heart. In my previous life, hadn't he detested a daughter like me? Why was he doing this now? Mrs. Jiang was crying, her voice choked, but she still clutched my hand and pulled me away. In that moment, I felt a significant sense of relief. Mrs. Jiang and I escaped the fire. We had survived. This case was extremely serious, and the police quickly launched an investigation. Very soon, Janet was arrested. The entire incident was planned by Gary, and Janet was the perpetrator, so both were convicted. Janet cried, demanding to see Mrs. Jiang, but Mrs. Jiang hated her to the bone. How could she possibly meet her? The sus also went to prison for the events of that year. Everything ended too abruptly. After Mr. Jiang passed away, Mrs. Jiang was also too grief-stricken to want to live. I hired people to take care of her. As for me, after graduating from Tsinghua University, I smoothly took over the family company, becoming CEO Jiang. I believe the future is long, and I will definitely live a dazzling life.